Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I'm Adam, your training director, and today's video is about engaging students. We'll look at why you need to engage students and how you can make some small changes to make some big differences. So let's go to part number one, which is about why we need to engage students. Okay, why we need to engage students. A big question is how long does it take to get good at speaking English? Well, the answer is a really long time. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, how long do your students spend speaking English each lesson? Let's say they only study with you 3 times a week. Let's say they study 1 hour 30 minutes each time. That's only 4 hours and 30 minutes studying English per week. Now let's look at your class time. How much of that class time are they actually speaking English? How much of that class time are they actually practicing English? Another big consideration is, how big are your teams? If your teams are really big, that's even longer that each student has to wait for them to take their turn practicing English. What you need to do is stop, look back at your activities and think, okay, if I have 2 teams of 9 students each, maybe each student must wait 15 minutes to take their turn to actually speak English. If you make one small change, and instead of having 2 very large teams, have 4 smaller teams, you're doubling the amount of English that you're speaking in that lesson. You're doubling the amount of English they speak in a week. Think about that over a long term, over the course of a year. Think about the difference you could make just by making one small change, and that's making more teams rather than bigger teams. Next consideration is weak students versus strong students. When do you stop your activities? Do you stop your activities when the stronger students are finished, or do you wait for weaker students to finish? You have to think about this, because if you wait for all of the weaker students to finish, what are the stronger students doing while the weaker students are finishing? If you wait for the strong students to finish and finish early, it means the weaker students don't get an opportunity to try at that activity. So what we need to think about is tasks for fast finishers. Fast finishers are the strong students who finish early. We need to keep them busy in order for weak students to actually have an opportunity to engage in our lessons. Okay, this is why engaging students is so important. And in the next section, we'll look at some small changes you can make to your lessons to make a massive impact to how well your students can learn English. Okay, let's go. I have some good news for you. It's actually not that difficult. What it requires from the teacher is active thinking. And I can't stress this enough. It has to be an active process of the teacher is actively considering how each activity is engaging the maximum amount of students as possible. As I mentioned in the previous part, teams. This is such a big part of things. How can you adapt your activity to involve more teams, smaller teams, more students participating at the same time? I guarantee you, if you take your lesson plan for tonight or your next lesson plan, look at each activity, think, how could each activity be played with more teams? You've just taken the first step to engaging more students in your class. Next is, can you adapt your activities? For example, instead of playing a game where 2 students stand at the board writing things on the board, why don't you use mini whiteboards? If you use mini whiteboards, it means everybody in your class, no matter where they are sitting, can be participating in the activity at the same time. Even if you have 30 students in a class, you could still put them into pairs with mini whiteboards, and in that situation, everybody is participating at the same time. Another thing is, instead of ending activity when the first kid shouts out the correct answer, have students raise their hands. Have students whisper the answer to the teacher. Or if the first answer you get, you don't have to say, yes, amazing, brilliant. But you can say, okay, anyone else? This gives students more opportunity to participate. Another thing is, each activity can have different parts. So for example, in the situation of strong students versus weak students, you can have extra questions for stronger students. So maybe an activity has 5 questions. You can prepare more challenging questions for stronger students to make it more interesting, more challenging. Okay, in the next part, we're going to look at downtime. And this is also very related to strong students and weak students. And we're going to look at some methods in which we can prevent downtime in our lessons and some activities that you can do easily like that to cut the amount of downtime in your lesson down. Okay, let's go to the next part. Okay, our last part will be talking about downtime, or otherwise known as dead time. This is when students don't have anything to do. And this is such an important thing because if students don't have anything to do, then 1, it's a waste of time. 2, they'll be doing what they want to do rather than what we want them to do, which will probably be very distracting. So, first key point is prepare. Obviously you've planned your lesson, but how prepared are you? If you want to play a song, do you have the song loaded on your computer? If you want to use flashcards, have you prepared the flashcards you want to use ready? If you're playing a game, do you have everything you need to play that game at hand ready? If not, then you're spending class time to prepare and you're creating downtime. Next is fast finishers. We mentioned this in the previous part, but here are some specific activities you can do. If a strong student finishes early, you can ask them to do extra things. And this doesn't require that much preparation, but it does require active thought. For example, write 3 more sentences. Write a question. Okay, look at the vocabulary. Can you draw a picture with this vocabulary? Can you write a conversation? Can you ask 3 more friends? These are activities which require no extra preparation, but it really does require active thought. If you're thinking about how to engage more students, it will happen in your class. If you're not thinking about this, then guess what? It's not going to happen. Okay, next is level of challenge. Ask yourself, is the level of challenge appropriate? Is it too easy? Is it too difficult? Think about some students who are first starting to learn English. You know, they only hear the words they understand. So if you start an activity by going, hi everybody, what I want you to do is, guess what your students are hearing? Your students are hearing blah 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 blah. And if this is what they're hearing, they're going to turn off really quickly. On the other side, think about very, very strong students. If you ask them to do something very easy and not challenging, they're not going to be interested or engaged either. Lastly, this is the difficult question. It's time to ask yourself, are your lessons boring? What I mean by boring here is, do you play different games or do you play the same game every single lesson? Do you try and do interesting activities or do you study from the book every lesson? Do you take activities out of the book to play in a class environment? Or does every class start with, everybody open your books, we're going to listen to part 1? Well, if you're using the book a lot like that, and if you're using the same activities every class, I'm sorry, but your class is not going to be engaging. As I just shared, if you're playing the same game every day, same activities over and over and over again, you have to be very careful about something that I call killing the activity. When you kill an activity, it means you take the fun out of it. It means the students play it so much that the next time you say, hey, we're going to play bamboozle, hey, we're going to play Kahoot, hey, we're going to play slap the board. The students, instead of going, yeah, the students go, you've killed the activity. The key thing to do is stop the game, stop the activity when students are still excited. If you do that, the next time you play the activity, the students will be very excited to play. If the students say, one more, and you keep playing one more, the next time you play, they're not going to be interested to play anymore. That's why it's so important to engage students. Okay, just to summarize, engaging students is actually not that difficult, but it really does require active thinking. It requires you to look at your lesson plan, look at each stage, and think, what's my plan for engaging more students? One final point, and that is simply, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. Okay, I really believe that you can do this. Hopefully this video has helped, and I'll see you in our next training video.